Hello, beautiful soul. I'm Aurora, and welcome to Twin Flame Journey, a space where we explore the deeper meaning behind soul connections, divine timing, and the path that leads two hearts back to union. If you've been feeling the signs, you're in the right place.
He thought the hardest part would be losing her. It wasn't. The hardest part was when she stopped reaching, stopped explaining, stopped asking, stopped giving him little openings to come back. Because, as strange as it sounds, a lot of men don't fully feel the weight of a connection while it's still available. They feel it when the noise disappears, when the messages stop, when the profile views become secret, when there's nothing left to react to except their own thoughts. And that's the part nobody talks about. Not the dramatic ending, not the breakup speech, not the final argument. The silence. The unbearable silence that slowly turns into an obsession. Not because she's chasing him, not because she's manipulating him, but because for the first time, there's nothing distracting him from what he actually feels. And sometimes, that's when everything he avoided starts showing up at once. I think one of the biggest lies people tell about men is that when they ask for space, they always know why. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they're overwhelmed. Sometimes they're genuinely exhausted. Sometimes they need room to think. But sometimes they have no idea what they're running from. They just know something inside them feels too loud, too close, too real. And they call that feeling needing space. I've watched this happen. I've lived it. And if I'm being honest, I've been the guy who said it. The strange thing is that when he first pulls away, he usually feels relief. Not happiness. Relief. There's a difference. Happiness expands you. Relief releases pressure. For a few days, maybe a few weeks, he feels lighter. His phone isn't carrying emotional weight anymore. Nobody is asking him difficult questions. Nobody is asking where things are going. Nobody is asking him what he's feeling. And maybe that sounds cruel. But emotional pressure doesn't always feel romantic when you're inside it. Sometimes it feels like standing in front of a mirror you didn't ask for. Sometimes it feels like being deeply seen before you're ready. And that can make a person run. Not because they don't care, because they do. Maybe more than they want to. I remember a guy I knew once. Or maybe this is partly about me. It's hard to tell anymore. The stories blur after enough years. Anyway, he kept saying the same thing. I just need some space. Over and over. Not angrily. Not coldly. Just persistently. Like someone trying to convince himself. He'd tell friends. He'd tell her. He'd tell himself while driving home after seeing her. I just need room to breathe. And for a little while, it seemed true. The first weekend after creating distance felt almost peaceful. He slept in, watched random videos, went to the gym, stayed out longer than usual. Nobody expected anything from him. Nobody needed reassurance. Nobody wanted clarity. The pressure was gone. Or at least that's what he thought. Then little things started happening. Tiny things. Embarrassingly small things. The kind of things nobody talks about because they sound ridiculous. He'd unlock his phone for no reason. Not consciously. His hand would just do it. Open. Close. Open. Close. 100 times a day. And every time there wasn't a notification from her, something inside him would pause. Just for a second. Not enough to admit it. Not enough to say he missed her. But enough. Enough for his nervous system to notice before his mind did. That's how this stuff works sometimes. The body figures it out first. The mind catches up later. Days later. Weeks later. Sometimes months. He'd be sitting with friends, laughing, having a genuinely good time. Then he'd reach for his phone. Nothing. And suddenly the laughter felt slightly further away. Not gone. Just further. Like he was watching himself participate. Then he'd put the phone down and keep talking, pretending everything was normal. Because maybe it was. Maybe. The weirdest part wasn't missing her. Not yet. The weirdest part was realizing she was actually respecting the distance. That's the thing nobody prepares you for. When someone stops chasing, stops checking, stops asking, stops trying to pull you closer. At first, it feels like freedom. Then, eventually, it feels like absence. And those aren't the same thing. Not even close. I remember one night, especially. Nothing dramatic happened. That's probably why I remember it. It was around 11:30, a random Tuesday. He was standing in the kitchen eating cereal straight from the box. No bowl, no milk, just handfuls while staring at absolutely nothing. The dishwasher was running. The refrigerator was humming. The apartment felt strangely loud. You know those nights? The ones where every appliance suddenly sounds emotional, where the silence isn't actually silent. It has weight. Anyway, he grabbed his phone, opened Instagram, typed her name, paused, stared at the search bar, then exited, then opened it again 30 seconds later, typed her name, looked at her profile, didn't interact, didn't like anything, didn't message, just looked, then left, as if that somehow counted as self-control. It's funny how avoidance works. You tell yourself you're moving on while secretly maintaining contact through tiny invisible rituals. Checking, looking, wondering, leaving, repeating. Not because you have a plan, because you're uncomfortable. And discomfort loves routines. The truth was starting to catch him. Slowly, like fog. Not all at once. Just enough that he couldn't completely ignore it. The space wasn't making him feel better. The space was removing distractions. And unfortunately, those are different things too. Because when she was there, he could focus on her reactions, her texts, her emotions, the relationship itself. Once she became silent, he was left alone with his own. And that turned out to be harder, much harder. A strange thing happens when somebody stops reaching for you. You begin noticing all the moments they used to, the random photos, the check-ins, the questions, the good morning messages, the stupid memes, the little attempts. You don't notice them while they're happening because they become part of the wallpaper. Then one day the wallpaper disappears, and suddenly the room looks empty. Not because the room changed, because you finally noticed what was there. I think that's where obsession quietly begins. Not in longing, not in romance, not in heartbreak. In contrast, the contrast between what existed and what no longer does. That's what gets under your skin. That's what follows you into grocery stores, into traffic, into the shower, into those weird moments when you're trying to focus on something completely unrelated. He'd be answering work emails, thinking about her, folding laundry, thinking about her, driving at night, definitely thinking about her, especially at night. There's something about driving at night. Maybe it's the lack of distractions. Maybe it's the darkness. Maybe it's the fact that your body is occupied while your mind is free to betray you. Whatever it is, that's where things started getting honest. Not verbally, internally, quietly, one thought at a time. Maybe I should text her. No, bad idea. You asked for space. Exactly. So why does this feel weird? Because you're adjusting. Am I? The conversation would end there. No answers. Just silence. The kind that sits beside you. The kind that follows you home. Part of him genuinely believed he needed distance. And maybe part of him did. But another part, a much quieter part, had hoped she'd leave the door crack open. Had hoped she'd keep checking. Had hoped she'd continue making it easy. Easy to return. Easy to delay decisions. Easy to avoid consequences. Easy to stay emotionally half present. But she didn't. Or maybe she couldn't anymore. And that's when the space started talking back. Not literally. Not dramatically. Just through little moments. Moments he couldn't explain. Moments he couldn't outrun. Moments that showed up when he was brushing his teeth. Or making coffee. Or lying in bed staring at the ceiling. The realization wasn't, I made a mistake. Not yet. It was much smaller. Much less cinematic. It sounded more like this. Ha. Pause. She's really gone quiet. And then, ha. Longer pause. I didn't think she'd actually do that. And underneath that thought, buried where he couldn't fully reach it, was another one. The real one. The one he wasn't ready to admit. The one that would take weeks to fully surface. The one already changing everything. Maybe I didn't want space as much as I thought I did. Maybe I just wanted safety. Maybe I wanted distance without loss. Freedom without consequences. Control without absence. And maybe those things were never actually available. Not in real relationships. Not with real people. Not with someone who eventually got tired of standing at a door that never fully opened. So he kept saying he needed space. And maybe he believed it. At least partially. But every day the silence remained. The story became harder to maintain. Because the space he fought for was finally here. No interruptions. No expectations. No emotional pressure. No difficult conversations. No reaching. No chasing. No her. And for the first time, he had exactly what he asked for. Which is when he began discovering that getting what you want and wanting what you get are not always the same thing. Nobody knows it's the last conversation while it's happening. That's probably what makes it hurt later. If people knew, they'd pay more attention. They'd read the words slower. They'd stay on the phone a little longer. They'd ask one more question. They'd memorize the sound of the laugh. But life doesn't work that way. The moments that end up mattering most rarely announce themselves. They arrive looking ordinary. That's the trap. The last message wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a goodbye. It wasn't some heartbreaking declaration. It wasn't even emotional. That's what bothered him most later. The final conversation was so painfully normal. A random Tuesday afternoon. Or maybe Thursday. The exact day became blurry over time. Funny how memory works. You forget entire months. Then spend years remembering one sentence. One stupid sentence. One casual text. One ordinary exchange. Something that wouldn't have seemed important to anyone else. Something that shouldn't have mattered. And yet somehow it became the thing his mind kept returning to at 2 a.m. Over and over. Like a song stuck in the background of consciousness. I remember looking back at messages once. Not immediately. Weeks later. Maybe longer. Long enough that the silence had already settled in. Long enough that reality had become impossible to avoid. I wasn't looking for anything specific. At least that's what I told myself. I was just scrolling. Just curious. Just passing time. That's always the excuse. Nobody ever says, I'm about to emotionally torture myself for 45 minutes. They say, I'm just checking something. Then suddenly it's midnight, and you're reading conversations from 6 months ago, trying to find evidence, trying to find clues, trying to solve a mystery that wasn't a mystery when it happened. And that's exactly what he started doing. The silence had created a vacuum, and human beings hate vacuums, especially emotional ones. So the mind starts filling the empty space with theories, with memories, with revision, with regret. Suddenly, he wasn't remembering conversations. He was investigating them. Every text became evidence. Every emoji became suspicious. Every delayed response became meaningful. Every phrase became loaded. Things that meant absolutely nothing at the time started carrying impossible emotional weight. One message in particular kept resurfacing. Not because it was romantic, because it wasn't. That was the problem. She had sent something simple. Something about her day. A picture of coffee. Or a bookstore. Or maybe her dog. The details changed every time he remembered it. But the feeling stayed. The feeling was that she had reached out, and he had barely noticed. Back then, the message blended into 100 others. Now it felt sacred, which sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds ridiculous. But grief does strange things to ordinary memories. It takes moments you barely acknowledged and turns them into monuments. Suddenly, he's staring at a photo he responded to with a thumbs up reaction. A thumbs up. That's it. That's all. And now, he's sitting there months later wondering what she felt when she saw that response. Did she feel dismissed? Did she notice? Did she care? Or is this all happening inside his head? The uncomfortable truth is he didn't know. And he would never know. Because the time for asking had already passed. That's another thing nobody talks about. Regret is rarely about the huge mistakes. Most regret comes from small moments. Tiny moments. Moments that seemed insignificant until they became permanent. People imagine regret as dramatic. They imagine slamming doors, big betrayals, explosive endings. Sometimes, regret is realizing somebody offered connection 20 times and you're only emotionally present for 5 of them. Sometimes, regret is discovering how many opportunities existed while you were distracted. And distraction can look like a lot of things. Work, stress, fear, pride, emotional confusion, even love itself, especially love itself. Because sometimes the closer someone gets, the stranger you become. Part of him genuinely cared. Another part kept pulling away. Part of him wanted her close. Another part felt trapped by closeness. The contradiction never fully made sense. Maybe it still doesn't. I think that's why he kept rereading old conversations. Not because he was trying to remember her, because he was trying to understand himself. And unfortunately, those are 2 very different things. There was one night that stands out. Not because anything happened, because nothing happened. He couldn't sleep. One of those restless nights where your body feels exhausted, but your mind decides it's the perfect time to revisit every emotional mistake you've ever made. The room was dark except for the phone screen. His eyes burned. The battery was almost dead. Still, he kept scrolling. Message after message. Month after month. Until he landed on a conversation that stopped him. Again, nothing dramatic. No confession. No argument. No breakup. Just a random exchange. She had said, "I hope your meeting goes well tomorrow." That's it. That's the sentence. The sentence that somehow followed him for weeks. A sentence so ordinary nobody else would remember it. Yet there he was, staring at it, reading it again, then again, then again, trying to understand why it hurt. Finally, the answer arrived. Not all at once, just quietly, because she cared. That's why. Not in some grand cinematic way, not in a movie speech way, in the smallest way possible, the human way, the everyday way, the remembering details way, the checking in way, the good luck tomorrow way. And somehow those things became visible only after they disappeared. The mind can be cruel like that. It hides value inside familiarity, then reveals it through absence. A week later, he found himself replaying another memory. This one wasn't even a conversation, just a moment. They were walking somewhere, maybe after dinner, maybe before. The details kept changing. Memory isn't a recording, it's a reconstruction. What stayed consistent was her laugh, not the sound, the timing. She laughed at something he said, something stupid, something he can't remember now. And for some reason, that tiny memory kept showing up. In traffic, at work, in grocery store lines. Like his brain had selected random emotional screenshots and pinned them to the wall. He hated it, partly because he missed her, partly because he didn't think he was supposed to. He kept trying to maintain the story that he needed distance, the story that this was the right decision, the story that everything was fine. But memories kept disrupting the narrative, especially ordinary memories. The extraordinary moments were easier to categorize. Anniversaries, big conversations, emotional milestones. Those made sense. What confused him were the insignificant moments. The ones nobody photographs. The ones nobody posts online. The ones that feel meaningless until they're gone. Sharing fries. Waiting at red lights. Arguing about where to eat. Her stealing the blanket. Her correcting his pronunciation of some random word. The weird face she made when concentrating. Tiny things everywhere. The human debris left behind after connection. And suddenly he was tripping over all of it. One memory at a time. One sentence at a time. One message at a time. Then came the really uncomfortable part. The part nobody wants to admit. The part where he started wondering whether the final conversation felt ordinary only to him. Maybe she knew. Maybe she sensed it. Maybe she had already begun letting go. Maybe she was already tired. Maybe she was already grieving while he was still assuming there would be another conversation, another chance, another week, another month, another opening. It's strange how confidence works inside relationships. People assume tomorrow exists. They assume access will continue. They assume opportunities will remain available until suddenly they don't. And then the mind starts bargaining with memories, trying to negotiate with the past, trying to reopen doors that only exist internally. That's where he found himself. Not heartbroken exactly. Not yet. Just haunted. Haunted by normality. Haunted by how ordinary the ending looked before it became an ending. One night his thoughts turned into a conversation. Not with her. With himself. The kind of conversation people never admit they're having. You didn't know. No. You couldn't have known. Maybe. You would have done things differently. Would I? That question lingered. Because honesty is uncomfortable. Would he have? Or is that just what regret says afterward? Would he have replied differently? Paid more attention? Stayed longer? Opened up more? Maybe. Maybe not. The truth was messy. Part of him knew. Not consciously. But somewhere beneath the distractions. Beneath the avoidance. beneath the constant busyness, a quieter part of him had known she was getting tired, known she wouldn't keep reaching forever, known things couldn't stay suspended indefinitely. He just didn't want to look directly at it. Most people don't, until the silence forces them to. And that's what was happening now. The silence wasn't just removing her voice. It was amplifying his memories. Every ordinary moment became louder. Every casual message became heavier. Every missed opportunity became visible. Not because the past changed, because distance changed the angle. And from this new angle, he could finally see something he had missed while living it. The last conversation wasn't important because it was the last. It became important because it revealed how much he had taken for granted while it was still happening. The care, the effort, the attention, the consistency, the presence, all those little things that seemed endless until they ended. And that's the cruel irony. The final message rarely feels important when it arrives. Its importance is born later, in silence, in hindsight, in the empty space where another message should have been, and long after the conversation ended, long after the phone went dark, long after he stopped pretending he didn't care. One realization remained. The message itself wasn't what haunted him. What haunted him was knowing he had read it as if there would always be another one. The strange thing about silence is that it doesn't actually sound like nothing. At least not emotionally. People talk about silence as if it's empty, as if it's the absence of communication. But that's not how it feels when you're living inside it. Sometimes silence feels louder than any argument you've ever had, louder than a late-night conversation, louder than I miss you, louder than I love you, because words give you something to react to. Silence gives you nothing, and human beings are terrible at handling nothing, especially when they care, especially when they aren't fully admitting they care. That's when silence becomes dangerous. Not because of what it says, because of what it doesn't. The first few weeks after she stopped reaching out, he kept expecting something. Not consciously. He wasn't sitting by the phone. He wasn't dramatically waiting by the window like some movie character. It was subtler than that. More embarrassing. More human. He'd go through his day normally. Answer emails. Run errands. Talk to people. Watch television. Fold laundry. Live life. And underneath all of it was this strange background expectation. Like his body still believed a message was coming. Like some part of him hadn't received the update yet. The update that said, "She's not doing that anymore." I think people underestimate how much the nervous system gets attached to predictability. You get used to someone's presence. Not just emotionally. Biologically. You get used to seeing their name, hearing their voice, receiving their random observations about life. The funny video they sent, the picture of their lunch, the unnecessary text, the completely unimportant message that somehow becomes part of your daily routine. Then one day it's gone, and your mind understands it faster than your body does. Your mind says, "We're not talking anymore." Your body says, "Okay," then continues expecting them anyway. 4 weeks, maybe longer. That's where the silence starts becoming loud. Not because she's doing something, because she's not. And somehow that becomes impossible to ignore. I remember one particular evening, or maybe it's a collection of evenings blended together. Memory does that. Either way, the feeling was real. He was sitting on the couch scrolling through absolutely nothing. You know those nights? The ones where you're not actually looking for anything. Just moving your thumb. Video. 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 Nothing sticking. Nothing landing. The attention span of a person trying not to think. Then suddenly he realized he checked 3 different apps. Not because he wanted content, because he was looking for her. Not directly, indirectly, the way people do when they're trying to maintain their dignity. Maybe she'd posted something. Maybe there'd be some clue. Maybe some indication of how she was feeling. Maybe proof that she missed him. Or maybe proof she didn't. At that point, either one felt better than uncertainty. That's another uncomfortable truth. People think certainty is always what they want. It's not. Sometimes certainty hurts, but uncertainty exhausts. It keeps the emotional wound open, because the brain keeps searching for information. Searching, 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 trying to close the loop that remains open. And silence leaves a lot of loops open. What is she thinking? Is she angry? Does she miss me? Has she moved on? Is she waiting? Is she done? Did I matter? Did any of this matter? The questions multiply, especially when answers disappear. That's why silence becomes a mirror. Not because it reveals her, because it reveals him. And that's where things start getting uncomfortable. Because while she was present, his attention had somewhere to go. Toward her behavior, toward her reactions, toward the relationship itself. Now there was nowhere to place it. So it turned inward. And he hated that, at least at first. Because self-reflection sounds romantic until you're actually doing it. Most of the time it feels annoying, messy, and finished. Like being trapped in a room with thoughts you'd rather avoid. One night he caught himself replaying an old conversation. Again, not intentionally. It just appeared. A memory ambush. The kind that arrives without permission. She had asked him something simple. Something emotional. Not dramatically emotional. Just honest. And he remembered changing the subject. At the time it felt harmless. Now it felt different. Now he could hear something in her voice he hadn't noticed before. Disappointment. Not anger. Not resentment. Just disappointment. The quiet kind. The kind people feel when they're getting tired. And suddenly he couldn't stop thinking about it. Why? Because silence changes perspective. It creates distance. And distance reveals things that proximity hides. When you're inside a situation, you defend yourself. You justify yourself. You explain yourself. You protect yourself. When enough time passes, you start observing yourself. That's a very different experience. The internal dialogue became harder to avoid. Maybe she was asking for more than I realized. No. Was she? Maybe. Then why didn't you respond differently? I don't know. That answer kept appearing. I don't know. The older I get, the more I think that's one of the most honest answers people can give. Not every emotional failure comes from cruelty. Not every mistake comes from bad intentions. Sometimes people genuinely don't know what they're doing while they're doing it. They understand later, which sounds convenient. But honestly, sometimes it's true. The problem is that later still hurts. For everyone involved, the silence kept exposing things. Tiny things. Things he'd overlooked. One afternoon he heard someone laugh. Not her. Just someone walking behind him at a coffee shop. For half a second his chest tightened. Half a second. That's all. Because the laugh sounded similar. Not identical. Just close enough. And suddenly she was in the room again. Not physically. Emotionally. The memory arrived before logic could stop it. The body recognized something. Then reality corrected it. That happened more often than he'd ever admit. Songs. expressions, certain phrases, specific restaurants, certain streets, a particular brand of perfume on a stranger, little things, tiny triggers. And every time they happened, the silence got louder. Because memories have somewhere to land when the person is gone. The worst moments weren't dramatic. They rarely are. The worst moments were ordinary. Like reaching for his phone after something funny happened, wanting to tell her, then remembering. Or seeing a movie trailer she'd probably love, then remembering. Or hearing news about something they'd talked about months ago, then remembering. The remembering became constant, not overwhelming, just persistent, like water dripping somewhere in the background. Eventually, he started arguing with himself, not out loud, internally, the way people do at 1 in the morning. You miss her. No, I miss talking to someone. Then why her specifically? No answer. A few minutes later. If you care this much, why don't you reach out? Because it's complicated. Is it? That question lingered. Because sometimes complications are real. And sometimes they're disguisers. Disguises for fear. Disguises for pride. Disguises for vulnerability. He wasn't always sure which one applied. The silence didn't provide answers. It exposed questions. That's what made it so powerful. People imagine silence gives clarity. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it gives confusion, contradiction, emotional static. One day, he felt completely over it. The next day, he missed her. The day after that, he felt angry, then guilty for feeling angry, then numb, then nostalgic. Then irritated by his own nostalgia. Human emotions aren't linear. They're chaotic, especially when unfinished feelings are involved. And her silence left a lot unfinished. Not because she owed him more conversation, not because she should have explained herself differently, but because unfinished emotions don't disappear when communication ends. They simply lose their destination. And when emotions lose their destination, they circle, round and round, looking for somewhere to go. That's what was happening to him. The silence wasn't speaking. His own feelings were. Feelings he'd postponed. Feelings he distracted himself from. Feelings he'd minimized. Feelings he'd buried beneath work, routines, and explanations. Now they had room. Too much room. And that's why her silence felt louder than her words ever did. Her words gave him something external, something visible, something manageable. The silence gave him himself, his regrets, his uncertainty, his memories, his questions, his contradictions, and perhaps the hardest realization of all. When she was speaking, he thought the relationship was the thing creating pressure. Now that she was silent, he discovered something uncomfortable. The pressure hadn't been coming from her. Not entirely. A lot of it had been coming from the feelings he kept trying not to feel. The feelings didn't disappear when she left. They stayed, waiting, growing louder, echoing through the empty spaces she no longer occupied. And that was the moment everything began shifting. Not because she returned. Not because he suddenly understood everything. Not because he had some life-changing revelation. Nothing that dramatic. Just one quiet realization. One deeply uncomfortable truth. The silence wasn't haunting him because she was gone. The silence was haunting him because for the first time, there was nothing left standing between him and what he actually felt. And unfortunately, what he actually felt was much bigger than he'd been pretending. One of the strangest things about loss is that it doesn't always arrive when the event happens. Sometimes it arrives later, much later. Sometimes the relationship changes on a Tuesday. And the grief shows up 3 months afterward while you're standing in line buying groceries. No warning. No reason. Just suddenly there. I've always thought that's one of the least understood parts of human emotion. People assume feelings happen in real time. Something happens. You feel it. Simple. Except it isn't. Not for everyone. Especially not for people who have spent years learning how to postpone what they feel. And postpone is probably the right word. Because many emotions don't disappear. They wait. Patiently. Quietly. Until the conditions are right. Until the distractions fade. Until the noise settles. Until there's finally enough space for them to enter. That's what started happening to him. Not immediately after she went silent. Not even during the first few weeks. At first, life kept moving. Work still needed attention. Friends still called. Bills still existed. The gym still open every morning. The world remained completely indifferent to what was happening inside him. And honestly, that helped. Busyness can be an incredible anesthetic. You wake up, check your phone, brush your teeth, answer emails, attend meetings, drive somewhere, watch something, sleep, repeat, days stack together, weeks stack together, and for a while, it almost feels like you're okay. Almost. The problem is that delayed emotions don't care about your schedule. Eventually, they arrive anyway, usually at inconvenient times. Especially at inconvenient times. I remember one story. Or maybe it's several stories blended into one. There was a guy driving home late one night. Nothing special about the drive. No dramatic weather. No emotional music. No life-changing event. Just a normal drive home. The road was mostly empty. Street lights passing every few seconds. That strange rhythm of light and darkness. Light, dark, light, dark. The kind of drive where your hands know where they're going and your thoughts start wandering. Then, out of nowhere, he remembered something. Not a breakup. Not an argument. Not even an important conversation. He remembered her reaching over and stealing one of his fries. That's it. A French fry. An absurd memory. A completely insignificant moment. And suddenly his chest tightened. Not dramatically. Just enough. Enough to make him grip the steering wheel a little harder. Enough to make him blink several times. Enough to make him realize he was feeling something he hadn't felt before. Or maybe something he hadn't allowed himself to feel before. That's the difference. People often think emotions appear suddenly. Sometimes they were already there. You just stopped blocking them. And when they finally get through, they rarely arrive carrying the memory you expect. They don't show up holding the breakup. They show up holding the ordinary moments. The stupid moments. The moments your brain labeled unimportant at the time. That's what hurts. Not the grand romance. The familiarity. The everydayness. The little pieces of life that quietly became part of you. I think that's why delayed grief feels so confusing. Because by the time it arrives, you've already convinced yourself you've moved on. Or at least started moving on. You've survived the initial shock. You've adjusted to the silence. You've built new routines. Then one random afternoon you're walking through a grocery store and suddenly you're staring at her favorite cereal. And there it is. The feeling. Waiting. Like it never left. I know a man who reorganized his entire apartment after a breakup. Or maybe reorganized isn't the right word. Obsessively cleaned. That's closer. One Saturday morning, he woke up and decided the apartment needed work. So he cleaned, then cleaned more, then rearranged furniture, then organized drawers, then deep cleaned the refrigerator, Then clean things that absolutely did not need cleaning. The baseboards, the ceiling fan, the inside of cabinets. The kind of cleaning that stops being about cleaning. Hours passed. The apartment looked great, but something felt off. Eventually, he sat down. The silence hit, and he realized what had happened. He wasn't cleaning. He was running. Running from a feeling that finally caught him when there was nothing left to scrub. It's funny. People talk about emotional avoidance as if it's always obvious. It's not. Sometimes avoidance looks productive. Sometimes it looks responsible. Sometimes it looks like self-improvement. Meanwhile, underneath it all, something is trying to get your attention. Something unresolved. Something waiting. The body usually notices first. That's another thing nobody warns you about. The body keeps records. Long after the mind starts creating stories. Long after the explanations begin. Long after you've convinced yourself everything is fine. The body remembers. A tight chest. Restless sleep. Sudden exhaustion. Anxiety you can't explain. That strange feeling when somebody mentions her name unexpectedly. 1 second you're okay. The next second your stomach drops. Then you're embarrassed because you're not supposed to react anymore. At least that's what you tell yourself. You're supposed to be over it. You're supposed to be stronger than this. You're supposed to have moved on. But feelings don't care about timelines. And they definitely don't care about pride. One evening he was sitting with friends. Everyone was laughing, talking, telling stories. Normal night. Good night, actually. Then someone mentioned a city she'd once talked about visiting. That was it. A city. Nothing more. The conversation moved on immediately. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. But inside him, something shifted. Suddenly, he wasn't fully present anymore. Part of him remained at the table. Another part had wandered into memory. He started remembering conversations, plans, possibilities, tiny things, the future they had casually referenced without knowing it might never happen. And for the rest of the evening, he felt strange. Not devastated, not heartbroken, just displaced. Like his body was present, but his attention wasn't. That's what delayed emotion often feels like. Not overwhelming, just persistent. A quiet ache, a subtle heaviness. A ghost sitting beside you that nobody else can see. The hardest part was how inconsistent it became. Some days he felt completely fine, actually fine. Not pretending, not performing. Fine. Then 2 days later, he'd hear a song in a parking lot and spend the entire drive home thinking about her. That inconsistency frustrated him because he wanted clarity. He wanted a clean story. Either he missed her or he didn't. Either he cared or he didn't. Either he was moving forward or he wasn't. But humans rarely work that way. Especially when love and fear got mixed together. Especially when regret enters late. Regret has terrible timing. It often arrives after the defensive part of you gets tired. After the ego calms down. After the justifications lose energy. Then regret quietly walks in carrying a list. Not accusations. Observations. You could have stayed longer. You could have listened better. You could have answered honestly. You could have called. You could have tried. Not because everything would have worked. Just because you never really found out. That's the painful part. Not certainty. Possibility. The possibility that things might have been different. One night he found himself staring at a message draft. No intention of sending it. At least that's what he claimed. The message sat there, half written, half deleted, half alive. a perfect representation of how he felt. He typed, stopped, deleted, typed again, stopped again, then laughed at himself. Actually laughed. Because the situation had become absurd. Months earlier, he wanted space. Now, he couldn't stop thinking about reaching out. Months earlier, emotional closeness felt overwhelming. Now, emotional distance felt unbearable. The contradiction was almost embarrassing. An internal conversation started. You miss her. I miss parts of it. Which parts? Long pause. The way she was there. That answer surprised him. Because it wasn't about romance. Not entirely. It wasn't about passion, or chemistry, or fantasy. It was about presence. The simple fact that someone had occupied a space in his life consistently, and now they didn't. Sometimes that's the grief. Not losing a future, losing a presence, losing a familiar voice in the background of your life. A voice you assumed would remain there longer than it did. Eventually, he started understanding something uncomfortable. The feelings weren't growing stronger. They were becoming clearer. There's a difference. The emotions had probably existed all along. He just wasn't fully available to experience them yet. Now, the distractions were weakening. The denial was weakening. The avoidance was weakening. And what remained was reality. Not dramatic reality. Human reality. Messy reality. The kind that doesn't arrive with a grand revelation. The kind that arrives while you're driving, or cleaning, or standing in line, or hearing somebody laugh, or reaching for your phone to tell someone something and remembering they aren't there anymore. That's when delayed grief finally speaks. Not loudly, not all at once, just one memory, one sensation, one realization at a time. And by the time he fully understood what he was feeling, another truth had already begun emerging beneath it. A truth even harder to face. Because the more clearly he saw what he felt now, the more he started realizing how much he hadn't allowed himself to feel back then. And that realization would become impossible to ignore. One of the most confusing things a person can experience is missing someone while simultaneously insisting they don't. Not publicly, not to friends, to themselves. That's where the real contradiction lies. Inside those private moments where nobody is watching. Because it's surprisingly easy to maintain a story in front of other people. It's much harder to maintain it alone, especially at night. Especially when your phone is 6 inches from your face and you have absolutely no reason to search her name. And yet somehow, you do. Again, the funny thing is, obsession rarely announces itself. It doesn't arrive wearing a sign that says, "You are not over this." If it did, people would recognize it immediately. Instead, it disguises itself as curiosity, as boredom, as coincidence, as concern, as harmless checking, as one quick look. Just one. Then somehow an hour disappears, and you're staring at photos you already promised yourself you wouldn't look at anymore. I've seen people do this. I've done versions of it myself. The human mind is remarkably creative when it wants access to something it claims it no longer needs. He told himself he was fine. Not once. Many times. The repetition itself should have been a clue. People rarely repeat things they're certain about. Nobody walks around saying, "I'm definitely wearing shoes right now," because they know they are. Certainty doesn't require reinforcement. But every few days he'd think, "I'm over it." Then immediately check if she'd viewed a story, or wonder if she posted recently, or find himself typing her name into his search bar before realizing what he was doing. Again, the body really does move faster than the mind sometimes. That's what nobody tells you. Habits survive long after decisions are made. His hands knew where to go before his thoughts caught up. Search. Pause. Look. Leave. Repeat. A strange little ritual. Not enough interaction to feel vulnerable. Just enough contact to keep the emotional thread alive. That's the part people don't always understand. Obsession isn't always about wanting someone back. Sometimes it's about not wanting them completely gone. Those are different things. Very different things. One requires action. The other only requires observation. And observation is safer. You don't risk rejection when you're quietly watching from a distance. You don't risk hearing no. You don't risk discovering they've moved on. You don't risk discovering they haven't. Because honestly, both possibilities can hurt. One Saturday afternoon, he found himself sitting in a coffee shop, working, supposedly. Laptop open, coffee cooling beside him, a document sitting untouched on the screen. He was trying to focus, or pretending to. Then something reminded him of her. He couldn't even identify what. Maybe a phrase. Maybe a song playing overhead. Maybe nothing at all. Sometimes memory doesn't need a trigger. Sometimes it simply arrives, uninvited. He opened his phone. Without thinking, there it was again. The familiar urge. The old routine. Just check. Just 1 second. Just curiosity. Nothing more. 5 minutes later, he was staring at a photo she'd posted weeks ago. Not liking it. Not interacting. Just looking. Then something uncomfortable happened. He felt relieved. And sad. At exactly the same time. That's a terrible combination, by the way. Relief and grief. Together. Relief that she seemed okay. Grief that she seemed okay without him. Nobody prepares you for that emotional contradiction. Part of you wants the person you care about to be happy. Another part quietly resents evidence that they don't need you for that happiness. Not because you're a bad person. Because you're human. Human beings are complicated. Especially after attachment. Especially after loss. Especially when pride gets involved. The strange obsession wasn't really about her social media. That was just the delivery system. The obsession was uncertainty. The obsession was unfinished emotion. The obsession was all the questions still living inside him. Because questions are surprisingly hard to move on from. People can survive pain. People struggle with ambiguity. What was she thinking? Did she ever understand why he pulled away? Was she angry? Did she miss him? Did she hate him? Did she still think about him? The questions remained, and every unanswered question became another reason to keep looking. Not for answers, for clues. That's the dangerous thing. Clues feel productive. You tell yourself you're gathering information. Really, you're feeding a loop. Every new photo, every new update, every new detail. Temporary relief, followed by more questions, more speculation, more projection. One night, he caught himself doing something particularly ridiculous. He was talking with friends. Her name came up, not directly. Someone mentioned a restaurant they'd all visited months earlier. Immediately, he thought of her. Immediately. Then, just as quickly he pushed the thought away, the conversation continued. Nobody noticed. A few minutes later, he brought up a story. A completely unrelated story. Or so it seemed. Halfway through telling it, he realized the story somehow involved her. Not intentionally. Subconsciously. The room kept listening. Nobody cared. Nobody saw the connection. But he noticed. And it bothered him. Because if he was truly over her, why did she keep appearing inside unrelated conversations? Why was she somehow connected to random memories, random locations, random observations? The answer was obvious. He just didn't like it. Because people become woven into your mental landscape. That's what intimacy does. They stop existing only as a person. They become referencers, associations, patterns, 1,000 tiny connections inside your brain. Removing them isn't like deleting a file. It's more like removing roots from concrete. The shape remains, even after they're gone. What made the obsession stranger was that it wasn't constant. There were days he barely thought about her. Good days. Productive days. Days that felt normal. Then suddenly she'd appear in his mind with shocking intensity. Usually when he least expected it. Usually when he thought he was making progress. Progress is funny that way. It rarely feels linear. You think you're moving forward. Then an old memory knocks on the door. One evening he found a picture accidentally. At least he called it accidental. The photo was buried deep in his camera roll. Months old. Maybe older. They were standing outside somewhere. Neither looking at the camera. Neither posing. Just existing. The kind of photo nobody posts because it isn't polished enough. And somehow that made it worse. The image felt real. Too real. Not romantic. Not cinematic. Just ordinary. And that ordinary quality broke something open. Because the photo wasn't showing a fantasy. It was showing a reality that once existed. For several minutes he stared at it. Then closed it. Then reopened it. Then closed it again. A ridiculous little cycle. The kind of thing people do when they're caught between attachment and self-preservation. Finally, an internal conversation began. You miss her. No. No. I miss what things were. What's the difference? Long silence. A dangerous silence. Because sometimes the answer arrives there. Not immediately. Just slowly. Painfully. The truth was he didn't fully know. Part of him missed her. Part of him missed familiarity. Part of him missed being known. Part of him missed possibility. Part of him missed the version of himself that existed around her. The emotions weren't organized. They weren't polite. They overlapped. Contradicted each other. Fought each other. One day he'd feel nostalgic. The next day irritated. The next day indifferent. Then suddenly emotional again. The inconsistency made him question himself. Maybe that's why he kept insisting he was over it. Because admitting otherwise felt vulnerable. And vulnerability becomes especially difficult when you've already lost access to the person involved. Who wants to admit they care after the connection is gone? Who wants to acknowledge longing when there's nowhere to place it? So instead he settled for smaller admissions. Safer admissions. I'm just curious. I'm just checking. I'm just wondering. The language kept shrinking, trying to disguise the feeling underneath. But emotions don't disappear because they're renamed. Eventually the truth starts leaking through. Usually in private. Usually when nobody is around. Usually during those quiet moments when distraction runs out. One night, lying awake, he finally admitted something. Not fully. Just enough. Enough to make him uncomfortable. Enough to make him stare at the ceiling for a while. Enough to make the room feel strangely honest. Maybe the reason he kept looking wasn't because he was obsessed with her. Maybe he was obsessed with the version of the story that never got finished. Maybe he was obsessed with unanswered questions, unspoken feelings, and lived possibilities. Maybe he was still standing emotionally in a doorway he never completely walked through. Not entering, not leaving, just standing there. And the longer he stood there, the more her absence expanded. Because that's what unfinished emotions do. They grow in silence. They grow in distance. They grow in imagination. Until eventually a strange realization begins forming. The obsession was never really about seeing her profile, or hearing her name, or remembering old conversations. Those were symptoms. The deeper truth was harder to face. He kept saying he was over her. But if he were completely over her, he wouldn't need to keep saying it. And somewhere beneath the checking, beneath the curiosity, beneath the pride, beneath the endless explanations, a quieter voice was finally becoming impossible to ignore. Not a dramatic voice, not a life-changing revelation, just an uncomfortable whisper, one he had spent months avoiding. Maybe I care more than I've been willing to admit. There comes a point when missing someone stops being the hardest part. The hardest part becomes deciding what to do about it. Because longing, by itself, is strangely manageable. Painful, yes. Annoying, definitely. But manageable. You carry it around. You get used to it. You build routines around it. You learn how to function while it's sitting quietly in the background. The real problem begins when longing starts demanding action. When the thought appears, the dangerous thought, the one that changes everything. Maybe I should reach out. Not because you're certain, not because you have a plan, just because the silence has lasted long enough that doing nothing starts feeling heavier than doing something. That's where he found himself, caught between two forces that wanted completely different things. One part of him wanted relief, the other wanted answers. And unfortunately, those are not always the same thing. Relief says, leave it alone. Protect yourself. Stay where it's safe. Maintain your dignity. Keep moving forward. Answers say, send the message. Ask the question. Risk the outcome. Find out. Relief wants certainty. Answers require vulnerability. And vulnerability is expensive. Especially after distance. Especially after silence. Especially when you're no longer sure where you stand. The first time he considered reaching out, he didn't actually do it. He just opened the message box. That's all. A tiny action. Meaningless on the surface. Yet somehow his heart started beating faster, which felt ridiculous. Because it was just a scream. Just a conversation thread. Just words. Nothing had happened. And yet his body reacted as if something enormous was about to occur. That's the strange thing about unresolved emotions. The body often treats possibility like reality. A future rejection can feel real before it happens. An imagined conversation can create genuine anxiety. A message that hasn't even been sent can ruin an entire evening. He stared at the blank space, cursor blinking, waiting. The simplest thing in the world. Just type. Yet somehow impossible. He wrote, "Hey," then deleted it. Immediately. To casual. He tried again. "Hope you're doing well." Deleted. Too formal. Again. "I've been thinking about you." Absolutely not. Delete. 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 At some point, the whole thing became absurd. He wasn't writing a message anymore. He was negotiating with himself. Every sentence felt wrong. Every possibility carried risk. Because the message wasn't really the problem. The outcome was. That's what terrified him. Not sending it. Receiving an answer. Or worse, not receiving one. People always focus on rejection, but silence can be harder. At least rejection provides information. Silence leaves room for imagination, and imagination is rarely kind. For days, the internal argument continued. Sometimes during work, sometimes during workouts, sometimes while driving. The same conversation, repeated endlessly. Just send it. No. Why? Because. Because why? That was the issue. The answer kept changing. Sometimes it was pride, sometimes fear, sometimes uncertainty, sometimes all three. One evening he was sitting in his apartment after work. The television was on. He wasn't watching it. A show was playing. People were talking. Music was happening. Entire scenes were unfolding. He absorbed none of it. His attention was somewhere else. Specifically, 3 words. What if she? What if she what? What if she moved on? What if she doesn't care? What if she's happier? What if she ignores me? What if she answers? What if she wants to talk? That last question surprised him, because fear isn't always about losing someone. Sometimes fear is about getting them back, or at least getting access to them again. Because if she responded, then things became real. Real conversations, real accountability, real feelings. No more hiding behind distance. No more hiding behind imagination. No more pretending uncertainty was the issue. A response would force honesty, and honesty can be terrifying, especially for people who spent months avoiding it. That's something I've noticed. People often assume the emotionally distant person fears rejection most. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they fear intimacy more. Rejection ends the story. Intimacy continues it. And continuing requires participation, presence, responsibility, vulnerability. The things that felt difficult before. The things that still felt difficult now. One night he almost sent the message. Almost. Which is a frustrating category of human behavior. Almost means nothing happened. Yet emotionally it feels enormous. He typed, read it, adjusted it, read it again, then stared at the send button. His thumb hovered there, actually hovered, for several seconds, maybe longer. Then he locked the phone, set it face down, and walked away, like the device had become dangerous. Like distance from the phone somehow solved the problem. 10 minutes later he came back, opened it, read the message again, still didn't send it. The whole situation would have been funny if it wasn't so painfully human, because beneath all the overthinking was a simpler truth. He wanted reassurance, not necessarily reconciliation. Reassurance, proof that the connection mattered, proof that he mattered, proof that he hadn't imagined everything, which is something people rarely admit. After emotional loss, many people aren't looking for love. They're looking for evidence. Evidence that what they felt was real. Evidence that they mattered to someone. Evidence that the experience existed outside their own memory. The ego especially wants that. The ego hates ambiguity. It wants clear answers, clear outcomes, clear victories, clear losses. The heart is different. The heart asks messy questions. Questions without guarantees. Questions that sometimes make life harder. The ego says, protect yourself. The heart says, but what if she needed an apology? The ego says, it's too late. The heart says, maybe. The ego says, don't embarrass yourself. The heart says, are you trying to protect yourself or avoid something? That question stayed with him, because avoidance has a way of disguising itself as wisdom. You convince yourself you're being mature, strategic, logical, reasonable. Meanwhile, you're simply afraid. Afraid of feeling exposed. Afraid of discovering the truth. Afraid that the story you've been telling yourself won't survive reality. Weeks passed. The message remained unsent. But something had changed. The internal resistance was weakening, not disappearing. Weakening. That's different. The longer he sat with his feelings, the harder it became to pretend they weren't there. Not because the emotions got bigger, because they became harder to deny. One afternoon, he was walking through a parking lot when he caught himself smiling at a memory. Not a painful memory, not even a particularly meaningful one. Just something she had said once. A joke, a weird observation, a random comment. And for a moment, he felt warmth. Then sadness arrived immediately afterward. That combination again. Warmth and sadness. Memory and absence. Connection and distance. The contradiction exhausted him. Because every emotion seemed to contain its opposite. He missed her, but resented missing her. He wanted answers, but feared getting them. He wanted connection, but feared vulnerability. He wanted certainty, but avoided the actions that created certainty. Human beings are complicated creatures, especially when pride and affection occupy the same space. One evening, lying awake, another internal conversation emerged. A quieter one this time. Less defensive. More honest. You still care. Yes. The answer arrived before he could stop it. No argument. No explanation. Just yes. A long silence followed. Then another question. Then why haven't you done anything? That one hurt. Because the answer wasn't complicated. Not really. The answer was in timing, or circumstances, or logistics. The answer was fear. Not dramatic fear, ordinary fear. The fear of being seen. The fear of being known. The fear of reaching towards someone and discovering they no longer reach back. The fear of finding out the silence means exactly what it appears to mean. And yet another truth was slowly emerging beneath all of that. A truth he hadn't fully considered before. Maybe reaching out wasn't really about changing the outcome. Maybe it wasn't about getting her back. Maybe it wasn't even about her response. Maybe it was about finally becoming honest with himself. Because for months he'd been trapped between two worlds. Not fully letting go. Not fully moving toward. Just lingering, waiting, watching, wondering, living inside possibilities. And possibilities are seductive. They allow you to imagine every outcome while risking none of them. Reality doesn't offer that luxury. Reality demands choices. Reality demands courage. Reality demands action, or acceptance. And sooner or later, everyone reaches that crossroads. The place where fantasy can no longer carry the weight. The place where silence forces a decision. Not necessarily contact, but honesty. Real honesty. The kind that strips away excuses. The kind that leaves only truth. And as he stared into the darkness that night, listening to the quiet hum of the apartment around him, he began realizing something he hadn't wanted to admit. The battle was never really between him and her. It wasn't between love and loss. It wasn't between the past and the future. The real battle had always been inside him, between the part that wanted safety and the part that wanted truth. And for the first time since she went silent, truth was beginning to win. The hardest truths rarely arrive all at once. If they did, most people wouldn't survive them emotionally. Instead, they arrive in pieces. Small enough to tolerate. Small enough to deny. Small enough to explain away. Until eventually the pieces form a picture you can no longer avoid. That's what happened to him. For months he told himself a simple story. The story was comforting. Simple stories usually are. She left. She went silent. Things changed. The end. Painful, yes, but straightforward. The problem was that reality kept interrupting that version. Because the more honest he became with himself, the more something uncomfortable started emerging. She didn't leave suddenly. The silence didn't begin when the messages stopped. The silence had started long before that. He just hadn't recognized it at the time. Or maybe he had recognized it. Maybe he simply didn't want to. There's a difference. One evening he found himself replaying old conversations again. Not because he enjoyed it. Because memory had become impossible to control. The mind was doing what minds do. Searching, reviewing, reorganizing, trying to understand. And suddenly a memory surfaced that he hadn't thought about in months. Maybe years. She had said, "I don't know how to explain this anymore." At the time, he barely reacted. The conversation moved on. Life continued. Nothing dramatic happened. No breakup. No major fight. No emotional explosion. Just another conversation. Another day. Another ordinary moment. Except now, looking back, the sentence felt different. He could hear the exhaustion inside it. Not anger. Exhaustion. And that realization sat heavily in his chest. Because exhaustion changes the entire story. Angry people still fight. Exhausted people stop. That distinction would haunt him for a while. I think most people imagine relationships and through dramatic events. Betrayals. Arguments. Big decisions. Sometimes they do. But sometimes relationships slowly disappear through repetition. The same conversation repeated to many times. The same disappointment. The same emotional distance. The same unanswered need. Not because either person is evil. Not because either person is trying to hurt the other. Just because human beings can only reach across the gap so many times before their arms get tired. That thought stayed with him. Arms get tired. For some reason, it felt painfully accurate. Because the more memories surfaced, the more he started noticing something. She had reached a lot. More than he remembered. More than he acknowledged. More than he appreciated. At least at the time. That's one of the cruel things about hindsight. It gives detail to moments that have already passed. Suddenly, he could see all the attempts, the questions, the invitations, the emotional openings, the conversations she tried to start, the things she was indirectly asking for. Not perfectly, not always gracefully, but she was trying. And he had often responded the way frightened people respond. Halfway. Just enough to maintain the connection. Not enough to deepen it. That realization wasn't devastating. Not immediately. At first, it was just uncomfortable. Then it became painful. Then it became impossible to ignore. One memory in particular kept returning. They were sitting together somewhere. Maybe a restaurant. Maybe a car. The location wasn't important. The feeling was. She had asked him something personal. Something vulnerable. Nothing dramatic. Just real. And he remembered joking. Deflecting. Changing direction. Making the conversation lighter. At the time it felt harmless. Now it felt revealing. Because for the first time he wasn't just remembering what happened. He was noticing what didn't happen. He wasn't noticing his words. He was noticing his absence. The emotional absence. The places where he disappeared while physically remaining present. And that's a strange thing to confront. To realize someone may have felt alone while sitting right beside you. The thought made him uneasy. Because it challenged the story he'd been carrying. The story where he cared. The story where he tried. The story where things simply fell apart. Now, another possibility emerged. What if she had been lonely long before she left? That question landed hard, harder than he expected. Because loneliness inside a relationship is different from loneliness after one. Loneliness afterward makes sense. Loneliness during, that's harder to face. Especially when you're part of the reason, not the entire reason. Relationships are rarely that simple, but part of it. Enough of it. One night he found himself lying awake. Again, the apartment dark. The ceiling familiar. The same position he'd spent countless nights in over the past months. Except this night felt different. Because the questions were changing. For a long time he'd been asking, why did she stop reaching out? Now he was asking, how long had she been reaching without feeling reached back? That question hurt in a completely different way, because it shifted his attention. Before, he focused on what he lost. Now, he was starting to see what she experienced. And empathy can be brutal when it arrives late, especially when the person is no longer there to confirm or deny your conclusions. You are left alone with possibility, alone with memory, alone with realization. The internal dialogue returned. Quiet, awkward, honest. She should have said something. A pause. Did she? Another pause. Longer this time. Because the answer was uncomfortable. Yes, in her own way. Several times. Not always directly. Not always clearly. But enough. Enough that he couldn't honestly claim ignorance anymore. That's the difficult thing about emotional communication. People don't always speak in obvious language. Sometimes they speak through frustration, through disappointment, through repeated questions, through changes in energy, through attempts, through effort. And sometimes those signals only become visible after they're gone. The realization triggered something unexpected. Shame. Not overwhelming shame. Not self-hatred. Something quieter. Something heavier. The feeling of seeing your own limitations clearly. The feeling of understanding a mistake after the opportunity to correct it has passed. I think that's one of the most human experiences imaginable. Not realizing till late that you didn't care. Realizing till late that you did. And that your fear, confusion, immaturity, or avoidance got in the way of showing it. That realization followed him everywhere. Driving, working, walking. The memories kept reorganizing themselves, each one carrying new information, a new perspective, a new understanding. He remembered times she became quieter, times she stopped bringing certain things up, times she said never mind. At the time he appreciated it. Less pressure, less emotional intensity, less conflict. Now those moments felt different. Now he wondered what existed beneath every never mind. How many thoughts never got spoken? How many feelings never got expressed? How many attempts quietly died there? People often think silence begins when talking ends. But that's not true. Silence begins when people stop believing they'll be heard. That realization sat with him for days. Because suddenly everything looked different. The relationship looked different. The ending looked different. Even her silence looked different. Before, he viewed it as something that happened to him. Now, he was starting to see it as something that happened inside her first. A process. A gradual withdrawal. A slow exhaustion. Not punishment. Not manipulation. Fatigue. Emotional fatigue. And strangely enough, that realization made him miss her even more. Because now he wasn't only grieving her absence. He was grieving his understanding. Or lack of it. The understanding he wished he had possessed sooner. The awareness he wished had arrived while she was still there. The awareness that arrived only after the door had quietly closed. One afternoon he was sitting alone when another thought appeared. Simple, brutal, impossible to unsee. Maybe the reason her silence feels so loud now is because she spent a long time feeling unheard while she was speaking. The thought hit him immediately. No defenses, no explanations, no arguments, just truth, or something close to it. Close enough. And for several minutes, he simply sat there. No phone, no distractions, no music, just silence. The same silence that had haunted him for months. Except now it sounded different. Because he was finally hearing more than his own loss. He was hearing her exhaustion, her disappointment, her effort, her humanity, and perhaps most painfully of all, he was hearing echoes of all the moments she tried to stay before she finally decided to leave. Not physically, emotionally. The leaving had started long before the goodbye, long before the distance, long before the final conversation, long before the silence. And the deeper he looked, the more impossible it became to deny. She didn't disappear suddenly. She disappeared slowly, one unanswered moment at a time, one unmet need at a time, one exhausted attempt at a time, until eventually she stopped reaching altogether. And now, sitting alone with the consequences of that realization, he found himself facing a truth far more painful than abandonment. Because abandonment creates anger. This created regret. The quiet kind, the mature kind, the kind that arrives when blame finally runs out. And for the first time since she went silent, he stopped asking why she left. Instead, he began asking a much harder question. What was she carrying all that time while she was still trying to stay? One of the most disorienting parts of losing someone isn't that your world stops. It's that it doesn't. The alarm still goes off. The coffee still brews. People still text. Meetings still happen. Traffic still exists. The grocery store is still full. The world continues with an almost insulting level of normality. And somewhere inside that normality, something feels unfinished. That's the strange ache nobody really prepares you for. Because when we're hurting, part of us expects reality to acknowledge it. Not dramatically, just somehow. A sign, a pause, a slowing down. But life rarely offers that. Life just keeps moving. And eventually you find yourself laughing at a joke while carrying grief. Answering emails while carrying regret. Making dinner while carrying questions. Existing into realities at the same time. The outer one and the inner one. The outer reality looked fine. Actually, more than fine. From the outside, he seemed to be doing well. Work was steady. Friends still invited him places. He went out. He showed up. He participated. Nobody would have looked at him and thought, there's someone carrying around an unfinished emotional story every day. Because that's not what unfinished stories look like. They don't always make people collapse. Sometimes they simply make them quieter, more distracted, a little further away than they appear. I remember a night when he was sitting at a restaurant with friends. The conversation was good. Everyone was laughing, telling stories, passing food around the table. Normal human life. The kind people post pictures of online. The kind that looks like happiness. And maybe parts of it were. But halfway through the evening, somebody asked him a question. A simple question. What have you been up to lately? Nothing complicated. Nothing emotional. Yet for a moment his mind went completely blank. Not because he didn't have an answer. Because he suddenly realized how much of his mental energy had been occupied by something nobody at the table could see. Thinking, remembering, replaying, wondering, carrying the invisible work of unresolved feelings. So he smiled, gave a normal answer. Everybody moved on. But internally he noticed something. He wasn't fully there. Not because he wanted to leave, because part of him was still living somewhere else. Somewhere between memory and reality. And that's a lonely place to be. Not because you're alone, because you're surrounded by people and still feel disconnected. I think that's one of the least discussed forms of loneliness. The kind that exists in company. The kind that appears while sitting across from people who genuinely care about you. The kind that arrives because your attention is divided. Part of you is present. Part of you is somewhere else entirely. The weeks kept moving. Then the months, and strangely, the obsession didn't disappear. It changed. That's different. At first it had been loud, urgent, constant, a storm. Now it became quieter, more subtle, less dramatic, but deeper somehow, like water slowly seeping into places you didn't know existed. He thought about her less frequently, but when he did, it stayed longer. A memory would arrive and linger. A question would appear and remain. An image would surface and refuse to leave. The intensity decreased. The depth increased. And honestly, that confused him, because he assumed healing would feel cleaner, more linear, more obvious. Instead, it felt messy, contradictory. One morning he'd wake up feeling free. That evening he'd hear a song and suddenly feel nostalgic. Not devastated, not broken, just pulled backward for a few minutes. Like an emotional current he hadn't anticipated. The strangest moments always happened unexpectedly. One afternoon he was shopping for groceries. Completely ordinary day. Nothing emotional. Nothing significant. Then he reached for something on a shelf. A particular brand of tea. And immediately remembered a conversation they'd had about it months earlier. That was it. Tea. A completely harmless object. Yet suddenly there she was. Not physically, mentally, emotionally, present for a few seconds, then gone again. The whole experience lasted maybe 15 seconds, but it changed the atmosphere of the entire afternoon, because that's how memory works sometimes. It doesn't knock politely. It appears, leaves, then leaves you carrying the feeling afterward. He stopped fighting those moments eventually, at least a little. Early on, every memory felt like a setback. Proof he wasn't moving on. Proof he was stuck. Proof something was wrong. Now he was beginning to understand something. Missing someone occasionally and always a sign of failure. Sometimes it's just evidence that they mattered. Still, understanding something intellectually and feeling comfortable with it are completely different experiences. There were nights when he still found himself scrolling endlessly, not looking for or anything specific, just scrolling, video after video, post after post, information without meaning, content without connection, hours disappearing, the modern version of staring at a wall, except louder, brighter, more distracting. Eventually he'd realize what he was doing, avoiding silence. Again, because silence had become complicated. Silence meant thinking. Thinking meant remembering. Remembering meant feeling. And feelings still had a way of surprising him. One particularly difficult night, he cleaned the apartment again. Not obsessively this time. Just enough. Enough to stay occupied. Enough to delay sleep. Enough to avoid the thoughts waiting for him. I always find that fascinating. How adults create sophisticated versions of childhood avoidance. Children hide under blankets. Adults answer emails at midnight. Children leave the room. Adults reorganize their closets. Different behavior. Same instinct. Don't look directly at the thing that hurts. Eventually, though, the distractions ran out. They always do. The apartment became quiet. The dishes were done. The television turned off. The phone battery nearly dead. Nothing left. Just him. And his thoughts. The thoughts were changing now. Less focused on what happened. More focused on what it meant. Less focused on her behavior. More focused on his own. That shift matters. Because eventually every unresolved story stops being about the other person. It becomes about your relationship with yourself. What you ignored. What you feared. What you learned. What you still haven't admitted. One night, an internal conversation emerged. A familiar one, but different this time. Do you still miss her? A pause. Sometimes. Do you want her back? Longer pause. I don't know. The answer surprised him, because months earlier he would have answered immediately. Now there was uncertainty, not because the feelings disappeared, because they evolved. He wasn't only missing her anymore. He was missing a chapter, a version of life, a possibility, the person she had been, the person he had been, the future they never reached. Those things become difficult to separate. Memory tends to blend them together, which is why letting go often takes longer than people expect. You're not releasing one thing. You're releasing many things at once. One afternoon, he saw a couple walking together. Nothing unusual. Just two people. Talking. Laughing. Existing. For a brief moment, he felt envy. Then, almost immediately, he felt embarrassed about feeling envy. Then he laughed at himself. Because human emotions are ridiculous sometimes. One feeling rarely arrives alone. They travel in groups. Envy, sadness, affection, gratitude, regret, nostalgia, all showing up at once like uninvited guests. That's what this phase felt like. Not heartbreak, not obsession, something quieter, more complicated. The emotional dust settling, the story becoming less dramatic and more honest. And honesty was revealing something uncomfortable. Life had continued. Months had passed. People had moved. Seasons had changed. New experiences had happened. Yet one part of him remained emotionally connected to something unfinished. Not trapped. Connected. There's a difference. Trapped implies inability. Connected implies significance. That distinction mattered, because he was beginning to understand that the goal wasn't necessarily forgetting. The goal wasn't erasing. The goal wasn't pretending the relationship never happened. The goal was learning how to carry it differently, less like a wound, more like a memory. But he wasn't there yet. Not completely. Some nights still felt heavy. Some memories still lingered. Some questions still surfaced. The difference was that he no longer expected life to stop until he figured everything out. Life had already moved forward. It never asked permission. And maybe that was part of the lesson. The world doesn't wait for emotional closure. People don't wait. Time doesn't wait. Everything continues. Which sounds harsh at first, until you realize something else. The fact that life continues is also what eventually saves you. Because while he was busy trying to understand the past, the future had quietly kept arriving. One ordinary day at a time. One conversation at a time. One morning at a time. And somewhere beneath all the questions he still carried, another realization was slowly beginning to form. A realization he wasn't fully ready for yet. Because up until now, he had spent months thinking about her. thinking about what happened, thinking about what was lost. But soon he would have to confront something even more difficult. Not who she had been, but who she had become inside his memory. And those are rarely the same person. There comes a point in almost every unresolved story when a person stops thinking about what actually happened and starts thinking about what they wish had happened. The transition is so subtle most people never notice it. One day you're remembering someone. The next day you're remembering a version of someone. And those are not the same thing. Not even close. The strange thing about memory is that it doesn't preserve reality. It edits reality. Quietly. Constantly. Without permission. Without warning. A little detail disappears. Another detail gets brighter. One moment becomes symbolic. Another gets forgotten entirely. Until eventually the person living in your memory begins drifting away from the person who actually existed. That's what started happening to him. Not because he was dishonest. Not because he was trying to rewrite the past. Because he was human. And human beings are storytellers. Especially when there are unanswered questions involved. Especially when there are emotions with nowhere left to go. The version of her living inside his head had become strangely perfect. Not perfect in an unrealistic way. Perfect in a selective way, which is honestly more dangerous. He wasn't imagining her as flawless. He was simply remembering certain things more than others. Her laugh, the way she'd look away when she was trying not to smile, the random messages, the inside jokes, the moments she understood things without needing lengthy explanations. Those memories remained vivid, sharp, accessible, ready at a moment's notice. Other memories started fading. The disagreements, the tension, the confusion, the things that felt difficult while they were actually happening. Those memories still existed, but somehow they sat further away. Like books on a shelf nobody reaches for. That's how nostalgia works. It doesn't lie exactly. It curates. And curation can be incredibly persuasive. One night he found himself staring at an old photo again. A dangerous habit. Not because photos are inherently bad. Because photos capture one frame, 1 second, one angle. Then our minds start building entire narratives around them. The picture showed them sitting outside somewhere. Coffee cups on a table. Sunlight. Nothing remarkable. Nothing dramatic. Yet looking at it felt strangely emotional. At first he thought he missed her. Then another thought appeared. A more uncomfortable one. Did I miss her? Or did I miss how that moment felt? The question lingered, because those aren't the same thing. One is a person, the other is an experience, and separating them requires honesty, the kind of honesty most people avoid. I think that's why unresolved relationships can become so psychologically powerful, because reality stops updating. The person leaves, communication ends, life moves forward. But inside your memory, the story remains frozen. The version of them you carry never ages, never changes, never disappoints you in new ways, never contradicts your imagination. Meanwhile, the real person continues living, growing, changing, evolving, somewhere outside the story. That's where things become complicated. Because eventually you're no longer comparing reality to reality. You're comparing reality to memory. And memory has an unfair advantage. Memory gets edited. Reality doesn't. I remember hearing someone say once, "The person I miss probably doesn't even exist anymore." At first I thought that sounded cynical. Then I realized it was honest. Not because people become strangers overnight. Because time changes everyone. including us, especially us. One afternoon, he found himself thinking about a future they never had. Not a real future, an imagined one, a collection of possibilities. The trips they talked about, the conversations they never finished, the milestones they never reached, the life that remained hypothetical. And suddenly he noticed something. The future he was grieving wasn't real. It had never happened. Yet emotionally, it felt as significant as a real memory. Maybe more. That's one of the strangest things about human attachment. We don't only grieve what existed. We grieve what almost existed. The possibilities. The potential. The roads not taken. Sometimes those losses feel heavier because they remain unfinished. Reality eventually provides answers. Possibility never does. Possibility can remain perfect forever. One night the internal dialogue returned. Quieter now. Less defensive. More curious. Do you miss her? I think so. You think so? A pause. A long one. Then, I don't know. The answer felt frustrating, but it was honest. Because certainty had become harder. Months ago, everything felt clearer. Now, everything felt layered. Complex. Contradictory. Part of him missed her. That was true. Part of him missed being understood. Also true. Part of him missed companionship. True again. Part of him missed who he had been during that chapter of life. That too. Which feeling was strongest? He couldn't tell anymore. And maybe that's what maturity feels like sometimes. Not certainty. Complexity. The ability to admit multiple truths at once. A memory surfaced unexpectedly one evening. Not a good memory. Not a romantic one. An argument. A misunderstanding. A conversation that ended poorly. And strangely enough, he felt relieved. Relieved. Because for a moment the memory disrupted the fantasy. For a moment she became human again. Not a symbol. Not a lesson. Not an ideal. A person. A real person. With flaws. Frustrations. Limitations. Needs. Contradictions. Just like him. That realization mattered more than he expected. Because romanticizing someone can become a subtle form of avoidance. You stop engaging with reality. You start engaging with imagination. And imagination rarely challenges you. Reality does. Reality reminds you that relationships contain both beauty and difficulty, connection and conflict, comfort and discomfort. The longer he reflected, the more he noticed how selective his mind had become. Some memories felt almost sacred. Others remained buried. Not intentionally, just naturally. The brain tends to preserve emotional highlights, especially after loss. It's like listening to a song and only remembering the chorus. The verses disappear. The complexity disappears. Only the emotional peak remains. One Saturday morning, he was cleaning out old files on his phone, deleting screenshots, removing duplicates, organizing things he ignored for months. Then he found an old conversation. Not a romantic one, actually kind of mundane. They were disagreeing about something completely insignificant. A restaurant, a movie, something forgettable. Reading it now felt strangely comforting, because the conversation felt real, messy, awkward, human, not polished, not cinematic, just two people being themselves. And suddenly he understood something. The memories he treasured most weren't actually the perfect moments. They were the authentic ones. The moments that felt alive. The moments where neither person was performing. The moments that couldn't be posted online because they wouldn't make sense to anyone else. The weird conversations. The stupid jokes. the random observations, the ordinary life. That's what people miss. Not perfection. Familiarity. One evening, driving home, another realization arrived. The kind that shows up when you're not looking for it. Traffic was slow. The radio was playing quietly. The sky was turning dark. And for some reason he thought, maybe I'm not missing her. Maybe I'm missing access. Access to the version of life where she existed. Access to a chapter that's already over. Access to a possibility that never fully unfolded. The thought stayed with him because it felt partially true. Not completely. Partially. And partial truths are often the most uncomfortable. They don't give closure. They complicate it. The truth wasn't that he didn't miss her. The truth wasn't that he only missed the idea of her. The truth existed somewhere in between. A place where most human emotions live. Messy. Imperfect. Difficult to define. He missed her. And he missed the story. He missed the person. And he missed the possibility. He missed reality. And he missed imagination. Both things existed simultaneously. Neither canceled out the other. Late one night, another internal conversation emerged. One of the most honest ones yet. Do you miss her? Yes. The answer came quickly. Then another question. Or do you miss the chance? Silence. A long silence. The kind that stretches. The kind that makes your chest feel slightly heavy. Finally. I don't know. And maybe that was the answer. Not certainty. Not clarity. Just honesty. Because sometimes people spend so much time trying to figure out exactly what they're grieving that they miss something important. Human attachment isn't neat. Loss isn't neat. Memory isn't neat. You don't always miss one thing. Sometimes you miss 10 things at once. The person, the friendship, the hope, the future, the familiarity, the version of yourself that existed around them, the chance to do things differently, the possibility that things could have become something more, or maybe simply something better. As he sat alone that night, looking out into the darkness beyond the window, he realized something. The woman living inside his memory was no longer exactly the woman who had left. Time had transformed her, not in reality. In his mind, memory had reshaped her. Nostalgia had softened her edges. Regret had amplified certain moments. Longing had filled in gaps. And for the first time, he stopped asking whether he missed her. Instead, a different question emerged. A harder question. A more honest one. How much of what I'm holding onto is her? And how much of it is the story I've been telling myself about her? The answer didn't arrive. Not that night. Maybe not ever. But asking the question changed something. Because once you start recognizing the difference between a person and a memory, you begin seeing both more clearly. And clarity, even when it hurts, is often the beginning of letting go. Or at least the beginning of understanding what you're actually trying to hold onto. I think one of the biggest misconceptions people have about emotional closure is that it arrives with an answer. A conversation. A text message. A reunion. An apology. Some final piece of information that suddenly makes everything make sense. At least that's what most of us secretly hope for. We imagine that one day the confusion will disappear. The questions will be answered. The story will become clear. The emotions will organize themselves neatly. And we'll finally feel free. But life rarely works that way. At least not the life I've seen. Most endings don't come with explanations. Most people don't get the final conversation they deserve. Most relationships don't end with both people sitting down, fully self-aware, calmly explaining every feeling they ever had. Most of the time, things simply fade. People change. Silence grows. Distance expands. And eventually you're left holding pieces of a story that never fully resolves itself. That's what he was finally beginning to understand. Months ago, he believed the silence itself was the problem. Then he believed the lack of answers was the problem. Then he believed the loss was the problem. Now something else was becoming clear. The silence had never been asking him to find answers. The silence had been asking him to sit with questions. And those are very different things. One requires control. The other requires acceptance. Acceptance sounds peaceful when people talk about it. In reality, it feels awkward, messy, and finished. Acceptance isn't standing on a mountaintop feeling enlightened. Acceptance is standing in your kitchen realizing you still think about someone sometimes and deciding not to fight yourself over it. Acceptance is hearing a song and allowing the memory to pass through. Acceptance is no longer treating every emotion like an emergency. That's less glamorous, but probably more honest. One afternoon, he found himself driving home after work. Nothing unusual. Traffic, red lights, people rushing somewhere. The same road he'd driven 100 times. And suddenly he realized he hadn't thought about her all day. Not intentionally. It had simply happened. The realization felt strange. Not exciting. Not victorious. Just strange. Because for so long she had occupied some corner of his attention. Even when he wasn't consciously thinking about her, she was there. In the background. A quiet presence. An unfinished sentence. Now there had been an entire day without it. And oddly enough, that didn't feel good. It felt sad. That's another contradiction nobody talks about. Sometimes healing itself can feel like loss. Because when the pain begins fading, the connection feels like it's fading too. And part of you doesn't want that. Part of you still wants to keep something. A memory. A feeling. A trace. Anything. Not because you're trying to stay stuck. Because letting go can feel like erasing. Even when it isn't. Especially when it isn't. That evening, another internal conversation emerged. A familiar pattern by now. Except softer. Less argumentative. More reflective. Are you over it? A pause. I don't think that's the right question anymore. The answer surprised him. Because for months everything had been measured against that standard. Over it. Not over it. Moving on. Not moving on. Healing. Not healing. As if emotional life were some kind of test with a pass or fail grade. But human beings aren't machines. You don't simply delete meaningful experiences. You carry them. Differently. That's all. Some stories stop hurting long before they stop mattering. That distinction changed everything. One weekend he came across an old photo again. The same kind of moment that once would have ruined his evening. A familiar face. A familiar smile. A familiar chapter of life. He looked at it. Paused. Smiled slightly. Then put the phone down. Not because it didn't affect him. Because it affected him differently. The grief wasn't gone. It just wasn't in charge anymore. That's an important difference. There are emotions we eliminate. Then there are emotions we outgrew. The second kind remains. It simply stops driving. And maybe that's what was happening. Not forgetting. Repositioning. The memory moving from the center of his life to one part of it. A meaningful part. But still a part. Not the whole thing. For the first time, he started seeing himself differently too. That was unexpected. For months the focus had been on her. What she meant. What happened. What was lost. What could have been. But somewhere along the way, another story had quietly unfolded. His own. The story of the man who kept asking for space. The man who avoided difficult feelings. The man who confused distance with safety. The man who thought he wanted freedom when what he really wanted was certainty. The man who spent months learning that uncertainty doesn't disappear just because you walk away from someone. That story mattered too. Maybe more. One night, he found himself remembering the version of himself from the beginning. The man from chapter 1. The one standing in the kitchen eating cereal out of the box. The one insisting he needed space. The one feeling relieved. The one convinced distance would solve something. And for the first time, he didn't judge that version of himself. He understood him. That's different. Understanding isn't the same as excusing. It's simply recognizing humanity, recognizing confusion, recognizing fear, recognizing that people often make imperfect choices while trying to protect themselves. Sometimes they hurt others. Sometimes they hurt themselves. Usually both. Not because they're malicious, because they're scared. And fear rarely creates elegant behavior. Looking back, he could finally admit something. Part of him had genuinely needed space. Part of him had genuinely felt overwhelmed. Part of him had genuinely not known what to do. Those things were true. Another truth existed too. He had underestimated what she meant to him. He had underestimated the consequences of distance. He had underestimated silence. Both truths could exist simultaneously. Life became easier once he stopped forcing himself to choose one. Another realization arrived a few weeks later. Quietly, like most important realizations do. He was walking through a bookstore. A random Tuesday. No emotional significance. No special occasion. Just life. And suddenly he saw a title that reminded him of her. Instantly. For half a second, he wanted to tell her. Then he smiled. Because the impulse still existed. The habit remained. But the ache wasn't there anymore. Or at least not in the same way. The moment passed naturally. No struggle. No spiral. No emotional collapse. Just a memory. Then the next shelf. Then the next moment. Then the rest of the day. That tiny experience revealed something. The goal had never been to stop caring. The goal had been to stop suffering every time he cared. There's a difference. A huge difference. One requires emotional amnesia. The other requires emotional maturity. And emotional maturity ain't nearly as dramatic as people imagine. Most of the time it looks like acceptance. Not perfect acceptance. Human acceptance. The kind with occasional setbacks. Occasional memories. Occasional sadness. Occasional longing. The kind that makes room for reality instead of fighting it. One final conversation emerged inside him late one night. The apartment quiet. The city asleep. No distractions left. Just honesty. Do you still love her? The question surprised him. Not because he hadn't thought it before. Because this time he answered differently. Not immediately. Not emotionally. Carefully. After a long silence. I love that she existed. Another pause. I love what we shared. Another pause. I love what I learned. Then, and I accept that it ended. The answer wasn't dramatic. There were no tears. No revelation. No cinematic breakthrough. Just peace. Not complete peace. Human peace. The imperfect kind. The kind that coexists with uncertainty. The kind that doesn't require all questions to be answered. Because the truth was, some questions would remain unanswered forever. Did she miss him? Probably. Did she stop loving him before she left? Maybe. Could things have worked if he had understood sooner? Possibly. Would reaching out have changed anything? He'd never fully know. And somehow those unanswered questions no longer felt unbearable. They simply felt human, part of being alive, part of loving people, part of losing them, part of growing beyond them. The silence never gave him certainty. It never gave him a perfect ending. It never gave him all the answers he wanted. Instead, it gave him something stranger, something less satisfying, something more valuable. It gave him himself, not the version hiding behind distance, not the version hiding behind pride, not the version hiding behind uncertainty, the real version, the one underneath all of it, the one capable of caring, the one capable of regret, the one capable of honesty, the one capable of growth. And maybe that's why her silence became his greatest obsession. Not because she disappeared, not because he lost her, not because the relationship ended, but because once her voice was gone, there was finally nothing left to drown out his own. And after months of resisting it, months of searching for answers, months of replaying memories, months of trying to understand her, he finally arrived at the truth he had been avoiding from the very beginning. The silence was never leading him back to her. It was leading him back to himself. Not the polished version, not the healed version, not the perfect version, just the honest one. And strangely enough, that turned out to be enough.
Thank you for spending this moment with me. If this message resonated with your soul, remember to subscribe and continue this journey with us here on Twin Flame Journey. And always remember, what is meant for your soul will always find its way back to you. Until next time, beautiful soul, trust the journey.